Watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and his name is Vince Romano. He's challenging this guy, who's State Representative Lou Lang. And sometime our camera guys are going to catch up with us. I'm in our director, and they're going to give you a shot of Lou Lang. No, that's Vince Romano. That's Lou Lang. See, I'm going to catch up with them. Now we've got it on Lou, so we're going to talk. Now it's on me. Back to Lou. We just do. It's tinkers to Everest to chance. Okay, we never started the show that way. But seriously, folks, if you're watching this as most likely the week of October 14th or so, we're taping on October 7th. You know, you're getting kind of close. You're about 3 weeks away from the election. These two guests we have this evening for you to be watching are both running. Lou Lang is running for state rep, for re-election to state rep. Lou's in his 26th year, right, Lou?
That's correct.
Okay, and he's done 34 shows on public affairs. Well, almost, but not quite. And everybody would know this, the 16th district, it includes chunks of Skokie and Lincolnwood and Morton Grove and Rogers Park, right?
That would be correct.
All right. Which one? Any of those that includes all of them?
I think it's all of Lincolnwood. The rest are a little bit cut up.
Correct. All right. Vince? And this is Vince Romano. There we go. He's the Republican challenger. You know, Lou's not used to having challengers because, well, he's, you know, it's a solid Democratic district, it is said, and they haven't had many. But Vince has stepped up, and we're going to have an interesting discussion here, right?
Hopefully.
And we're just going to start out by, Lou, just tell me, okay? I want to know what you're going to do about pension reform. And we're going to do these real quick, and we'll come back and do more extended conversation. But it is said that pensions in Illinois for state employees are underfunded anywhere from $80 billion to $200 billion. We're making, as you know, $5 to $6 billion annual payments. The General Revenue Fund, which is really the budget for the state of Illinois, is only about 33 billion, maybe 35, depending on, well, if somebody takes $2 billion and walks, no. So it's about $33 billion, and if you pay 5 to pensions, state employees, there's not much left. So what do? You can't keep that up. It's not sustainable. You got to do something. You got to either, some would say, raise the retirement age, increase the employee contribution, change the cost of living adjustment. State Rep Lou Lang, you've been there. What do you do?
It's a serious problem, and you pointed out perfectly, so I don't have to go through what the problem is. We use a substantial portion of our budget every year. Most of the income tax increase went to the pension payment. It's eating away our ability to fund schools, to deal with health care and other important issues. What we do is try to get everybody to the table and get an answer to these questions. What we don't do is pass a bill that's unconstitutional. And so I would say to you that we have to deal with this problem. It's imperative. But we have a document in our state called the Constitution of the State of Illinois. And it says very clearly in that Constitution that you can't diminish somebody's pension benefit, a public employee's pension. And so some of the things you mentioned are constitutionally protected, some are not.
And retirement age,
The retirement age can be increased.
Can you increase the employee contribution?
The employee contribution can be increased.
Can you change the COLA?
In my view, you cannot change the COLA because the COLA is constitutionally guaranteed. Now, the COLA, for the listeners that don't know, is a cost of living adjustment that's built into the pension plan. And you know, when the pension plan was created years ago, perhaps it was a mistake to give to give everyone a 3% annualized compounded COLA.
Irrespective, if the cost of living goes up 1.5%, they get 3%. Every state employee gets 3% a year, compounded. Okay?
That is correct, and I submit it was a mistake to do, but we have a constitution.
Excuse me, who made that mistake? When was that started?
When the pension plan was first created.
Approximately when would that be?
I don't have that date. A long time ago.
Were you there?
No, I was not.
That predated you?
Predated me.
Okay. And the 3% COLA did?
I believe it did, and if it didn't, then it didn't, but I believe it did.
We're going to get Vince onto the conversation.
Let me just say this.
Let's get
when
Vince
the pension plan was created, people were living to 65 and 70. Now they're living to 85 and 90. So I don't think people are going to agree to die at 65 just to help us with our pension problem. Thank God they're living longer.
But real quick, Lou, do you favor an increase in the retirement age?
Do I favor it? Yeah. I think all options have to be on the table.
Would
I vote for it?
Yes or no? Do you favor it?
As part of a package that solves this problem, I would vote for it. But I'm not going to say pick and choose different items to say I'm for this.
Same thing about the employee contribution?
The employee contribution should be on the table.
Okay.
The COLA cannot be on the table constitutionally.
Anything else I'm leaving out that you would think should be on the table?
Not at this time, but I have told people, come to the table with new ideas, let's look at them.
Vince Romano, what would you do if you were the state rep from the 16th district about pension reform?
Well, the first thing I've said about anything to be done with the state, including pension reform, is we need to have a better economy and jobs. No matter what cuts we do in this state towards the pensions or anything else, if we don't have a healthy business environment, we're not going to have that revenue coming in. So that's our number one thing. What we've talked about is the COLAs have to be adjusted to a reasonable cost of living increase, perhaps tied to Social Security, what they get. The amount of the benefits that they get have to be
Employee
increased.
contribution, it's
Employee
roughly 8
contribution.
to 9% now. The
Right.
proposal from Governor Quinn, I believe, was for most of the funds there, increase it to 11 to 12%.
Right.
Which is what state representatives and state senators
Right.
pay now, 11.5%.
Would you favor that increase?
Oh yes, definitely. And
Would
also,
you favor an increase in the retirement age?
yes, we're putting it up 62, perhaps 65, like Social Security. We have to mimic what the private sector
And
does.
the modification of the COLA, anything else? That's it?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, also the health care benefits that they're getting now. They
You
say,
have to raise the cost of those health care benefits.
right, private sector, the average is about 54% of what the private sector pays for their health care benefits.
So you'd raise it 54%?
Well, we have to look at what the amount is, and the amount we save on that health care could go to pay the pensions. Another thing I have is a mega pension fee idea that we've brought up of any pensions over 100,000 or any double dip pension brought in, say it's a $150,000 pension.
Okay, we violated my rule. And just go ahead, and we're going to wrap this quickly because I wanted to go quick on each one. We've gone a little longer.
Okay.
That's fine.
Well, if we're going to come back to the topic, we'll talk about
But
it.
would you go toward a 401k?
Oh, definitely. I was put on my website.
That's a defined contribution, not a defined benefit. That's currently the
Correct.
thing.
I think the legislature should be the first ones to lead that, to lead the way.
Which is what we've done for new employees.
Let me go back.
So for all the talk about not doing anything about pensions, we have taken away the guaranteed health care for retirees, and we have created for all new employees a brand new pension system.
And how much is that health care that they're paying?
We saved $900 million with the bill that passed
What's
both
the
chambers.
percentage that they're paying for their health care?
Some will pay 100% of their health care, some will pay less.
The new employees, some will pay 100%.
I'm talking about the current retirees. The current retirees...
Some of the current retirees pay 100% of their health care premiums?
No, under the bill we passed, some of them will be paying 100% of their health care premiums.
When does that start?
I believe the effective date is January 1st.
Okay. All right, we're going to go back. We'll come back to these and other topics if we can, but what I'm going to do is a real quick lightning round. Try to give you an answer in about 10 to 20 seconds, okay? Lou, pro-life or pro-choice?
I'm pro-choice, always have been, a very strong pro-choice proponent.
That means you would not favor any restrictions whatsoever on a woman's right to have an abortion?
I think a woman's right to have an abortion is between her and her doctor and her God and no one else.
All right, Vince Romano, pro-life or pro-choice?
I'm pro-life, and like my opponent here, he voted to have taxpayer-funded abortions. He voted for no notification of parents. I mean, even a child has to go get permission from their parents to get a...
So you favor parental notice?
Right.
You favor requiring a minor daughter...
And what type of
a minor
person-
daughter to get approval before she gets an abortion. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. And also...
From her parents?
Correct. If you have to get it for ear piercing or you get an asprin from your nurse
Would you
at
allow
school,
any exceptions? In
What-
other words,
and
you
what-
don't want
what
abortions.
oth-
What about the life of the mother? Would you allow an abortion for that?
Yeah, for
What
the life
about
of
the
the
health
mother.
of the mother?
That's a separate issue now, because the health of the mother can mean anything. And the other thing I want to point
All
out
right,
is...
so the health of the mother, no. Partial birth abortions, you would ban?
Well, correct. I mean, how can you have somebody, what kind of goal votes for not only that, but also to have a baby that's born be put on a shelf, to vote against the Born Alive Act, the Born Alive bill? I mean, that's unconscionable.
So the Born Alive bill that came up a number of years ago. Did it ever pass the state senate or the state house?
They passed it, but then I believe got struck down on the way it was worded.
You would have voted to restrict.
No, that if a baby's born alive, you do not put it on a shelf to die, that you try to have that viable baby born.
You have a comment on that, Lou?
Well, there was a bill dealing with that, but the bill had much more in it than that one paragraph. So if you're in Springfield and you read bills, you know they're not one paragraph long, they're hundreds of pages long.
So you opposed
sometimes.
it for the other things that
Yeah, I don't remember what else was in the bill, and I don't remember that I even opposed it, but I do remember that I voted for a ban on partial birth abortions.
Okay. And the Born Alive bill.
All right. So we've covered abortion, guns. Lou Lang. A lot of people say concealed carry would be a good thing because people, if they faced a bad guy and he was armed and they had a revolver, it would kind of equalize things. What do you
I'm
think?
opposed, as most police are in this state, to concealed carry of handguns. Yes, we're the only state in this country that bans them, but in my view, it's not a good idea for public safety. I note that my opponent talks on his website about this, but hasn't talked about it publicly. In fact, on his website, he's got some people blogging in where they want to keep from the public that my opponent is for concealed carry of handguns.
Mr. Romano,
in the last poll we took in my district, 88% of the constituents that I represent are opposed to concealed carry of handguns.
How do you respond, Vince Romano?
I'm a firearms and women's self-defense instructor. I help instruct some police and some military, and most police are in favor of concealed carry.
You're in favor of concealed carry?
Oh yes, 49 states have it. We're the only state that
What do you
doesn't
say-
allow our citizens to protect themselves. I know about disparity of force that women face, and Lou here only wants women to have a right in their home to carry a gun. What about when they're out with their families?
Okay. But you agree, you do think a woman should have the right to to possess a gun, own a gun in their home, is that right, Lou? In Chicago, Skokie, wherever in the state of Illinois?
I think we have state laws now. When you have a FOID card, you're allowed to own a gun.
And you think that's a good law, or just the law that we have to have?
I
because of
have
the Supreme
not.
Court?
I have not voted against the ability of people to protect themselves in their own home.
So the women only have rights in their house then, right?
For a person who's against a woman's right to choose, to talk about women's rights is a little laughable, Vince.
So our citizens are less protected, have less rights than other citizens
Is that a
in other
woman's issue
states.
in your view, the concealed carry thing?
Oh, definitely, especially with disparity of force. I teach women self-defense. I mean, it's the equalizer. I mean,
When you're running for public office and you want to represent 110 or 112,000 people, and 88% of those are against your position, I would say that perhaps you should rethink your position.
Vince, what do you say about that? Do you think that 88% statistic is correct? And if so,
well,
what do you say to the folks if 88%
I don't think
of your constituents don't want it?
I don't think that 88% is correct from the people I've talked to. I mean, especially in the dealings I've had going around the neighborhoods. And also, I think that the vote on that would affect the whole state. Have you polled the whole state on that, Lou? And are you against even having the people choose if they want concealed carry in the state?
We don't. The reason we have a legislature is for the legislature to make decisions. If we turn every conceivable issue, guns, taxes, gambling, abortion, if we turn gay rights, if we turn all of that over for a vote of the public, then you don't need a legislature. The purpose of having elected officials is to make those decisions.
On that one issue, concealed carry, is that important enough to get a vote of the people, a referendum, even an advisory opinion across the state of Illinois?
If people want to have an advisory opinion from the voters on any issue, there's a provision in Illinois law to put it on the ballot. I would suggest that Vince and his supporters put that on the ballot.
But do you think that people in other states should have the right to protect themselves, not the people in our state? I just want to get that correct.
I think the people in other states are wrong. I believe that concealed carry is dangerous for our society and will continue to believe.
49 states are wrong, then?
And
I believe that 49 states are wrong.
And guns are used 2 million times a year to protect people, so you want to deny that right to people?
Well, we also have people using guns inappropriately. We also have people using guns against their family members. We also have people using guns that are not properly trained. I know you're a gun trainer, and I'm sure you do it well, but not everyone in Illinois is well trained. A lot of people in Illinois drive cars. They have to get insurance. If we have concealed carry events, are you prepared to require everyone that owns a handgun to have insurance on that gun?
So you want to take a constitutional right and make somebody get insurance on it? That's absurd.
What's the constitutional right?
The right to keep and bear arms, Second Amendment of the Constitution.
Does that say you have a constitutional right to have concealed carry?
That's the issues we're going through now.
Okay, the Supreme Court's never ruled on that one, have they?
No, not yet. Okay. But they just overturned in McDonald versus Chicago over the handgun ban, trying to ban guns from people having rights. I'm sure we'll hear it pretty shortly.
Same-sex marriage, Vince. Do you think two people who love each other, you're a conservative. Conservatives say they are for commitments, for the idea and concept of marriage. Two people love each other. Their genetic setup, some would say, is such that they, males, females, they feel an attraction to. Either a woman feels an attraction to another woman, a man feels an attraction to another man. But they want to have a firm commitment, the kind of marriage that you and other conservatives talk about. Would you think same-sex marriage might be a good idea in that sense?
Well, I think nobody should discriminate, harass, beat up any gay, lesbian, bi, transgender people. I do believe marriage is between a man and a woman.
Would you have supported what is known then, I guess, as what Senate Bill 101, House Bill 101? These were laws that said that people in Illinois could not discriminate against somebody in credit, in housing, in employment, based on their sexual orientation. Would you have voted for that bill?
Yes.
Okay, and Lou, you did vote for that bill, right?
Not only did I vote for it, I think I was the sponsor of that bill.
Okay.
And so I've been a strong supporter of gay rights from the beginning. I passed the first gay rights bill in the state of Illinois regarding housing, and credit, and employment. I voted for the act that allows gay couples to have a civil union, and I was a proud sponsor of that. And that hasn't caused havoc in society.
You ready to go the next step?
That hasn't changed anybody's family values.
Would you go to same-sex marriage?
And I think that was a good test case to move forward.
You're ready to go there?
If people love each other, and we really want to talk about family values, we've got so many unloving relationships in our world. Half the people who get married who are heterosexual get a divorce. Why wouldn't we let people who are in love get married?
So you would change the law in Illinois to permit same-sex marriage?
I'm a sponsor of the bill.
Okay. And you're opposed to that?
Correct.
Because you believe what? What is it that motivates your opposition to that bill?
Well, it's marriages between a man and a woman.
Plus, where do you get that from? You get that from the Bible? You get it from sort of your own values? When you say marriages between a man and a woman, how have you decided that?
I mean, between my beliefs.
Your religious beliefs, your philosophical beliefs?
Both.
Okay. Back to the economic issues. Taxes, Lou. You voted for the big $5 billion tax increase?
I voted for the income tax
increase in the income. It went from 3% to 5%. Some have described that as a 66% increase. It was for individuals. It was for corporations. John Tillman from the Illinois Policy Institute says you did that, and during that next year, you had an increase in unemployment in Illinois. Certainly, the employment did less well in Illinois than surrounding states.
Actually, that's not true at all.
For 2011, no, but just for 2011, because it went into effect at the beginning of 2011. Tillman says he kept it just to 2012. I asked him about that. He didn't go into 2012. But for 2011, he said, anybody would look at this anecdotally, statistically, you would find Illinois did less well than the surrounding states or states even further in just distance.
I would suggest
was John Tillman of the Illinois Policy Institute wrong on that?
I would suggest to you we don't govern in a vacuum, and we don't pick out 1 month or 1 year to take a look at what's going on in Illinois.
1 year's a big time. I mean,
1 year's a big time, and while nobody wants to vote for an income tax increase, I didn't vote for it. On balance, I felt we needed to do it to pay some of our bills.
You just said you didn't vote. You did vote for it. You didn't want to vote for it.
I didn't want to vote for it,
but
I did vote for it.
And did you worry about the employment consequences?
I did, because I spent 2 full years traveling the whole state with 54 other legislators on the task force that I created and chaired called the Job Creation Task Force. And I'm here to tell you that while Illinois was hurt very badly by the recession, Illinois has created more new jobs in the last 2 years than any surrounding state. For all of the talk about...
What's the unemployment rate in Chicago?
I don't know what the unemployment rate is.
It's a high rate now.
But the fact is,
isn't it 10%?
The fact is that in the state of Illinois, we have created more jobs than any state surrounding us. And for all of the talk about all these jobs leaving Illinois for Wisconsin, the true fact is more businesses have left Wisconsin for Illinois in the last 2 years than left Illinois for Wisconsin in the last 2 years.
Let's let Vince respond.
Now, he wants to talk about a long time, and he's been on the Jobs Council. We've had the lowest amount of entrepreneurship in a decade in Illinois. We have a business climate rate 48th. He wants to talk about jobs that were created, that we beat Wisconsin. Well, Wisconsin only has 5.7 million people. We have about 2.5 times that. And Wisconsin did not create, or Illinois did not create 2.5 times more jobs than Wisconsin. So as a percentage base, we were actually worse than Wisconsin. So you got to take that into consideration.
So would you have voted against the increase in the income tax?
Oh, definitely.
For employees and individuals. But what would you have done about, at that time, it was said that they were running about a $5 billion deficit. And so I think people would say that $5 billion increase went to, we balanced the budget essentially that year.
We didn't balance anything.
No, it came very close. I think most people, I think people, Democrats and Republicans would say for the last fiscal year, I think we were maybe $500 million. Does that sound right? $500 million below balance. I don't think people would say we're $5 billion out of whack. So for whatever reason, the deficit shrunk during that year. Right or wrong, Vince?
Well, we're still $83 billion in a hole.
No, but the deficit shrunk, right?
I don't think it shrunk that year, no.
Oh,
The fact is that over the
Lou,
last...
do you think it shrunk?
They're clearly shrunk. We've got a way to go. We certainly have more people to put to work. We certainly have more bills to pay. But the fact is that in the last 2 years, we've passed both years bipartisan balanced budgets, Republicans and Democrats working together with a cap, saying we're not going to spend more than what we're taking in. This is what we're taking in, this is what we're going to spend, and we still managed to whittle down some of the past due debt. We have a long way to go.
A cap with raising taxes, though.
Well, so governing is tough business. It's okay to say, I wouldn't have done it, but how would you have paid those $5 billion in bills? Where would you have gotten the money to do it?
You've been in the legislature now for going on 26 years, appointed in '87. All of a sudden this pops up, and they're using the citizens like credit cards. I mean, now they want to push this pension debt.
What would you have done? Answer State Representative Lang's question. You wouldn't have increased income tax for individuals and for corporations.
We should have started cutting stuff.
What would you have cut? Where would you have cut?
Well, we could have started doing with this pension issue. We knew it was coming down the pipeline for a long time instead of waiting till the last minute to try to do something.
So what would you do now, though? We have that problem now. So if you were there when the income tax increase was voted on, which was, I guess, the beginning of 2011,
right,
you would have opposed that.
Right.
You would have been confronted with roughly a $5 billion deficit based on the spending that the majority wanted to do, which was the Democrats, maybe joined by some Republicans.
Right.
Based on that, there was a $5 billion deficit. Answer Lou Lang's question. He said, what would you have done now, in January of 2011?
Automatically frozen those COLAs on people.
Okay.
I mean, that would have saved us a lot of money.
But much of that's coming in the future. You'd have to deal with the current budget.
Well, that takes into consideration
that would give you
now.
some benefit, but it doesn't deal with all $5 billion.
Okay.
What would you have done? Where else would you have cut? Where else would
In
you have
fact,
cut?
freezing the COLAs wouldn't have saved a dime, because that deals with the unfunded liability in the pension system. It deals with the interest on the pension system.
Which is not a part of the operating budget.
So cutting the COLAs might save you money in the future. It saves you $0 today.
Well, it saves you something possibly in that annual payment, but not a lot. It saves you more. It saves you the annual payments you're going to make in the future, right?
As we whittle it down,
right.
that's correct. And as people unfortunately die,
I don't want to get in the weeds
too.
on that, but where else would you have cut? Because
Well,
you would have had some savings there. We can argue about how much,
Okay.
but where else would you have cut?
That would have been some immediate stuff. If we had bumped up, if we started doing all those pension solutions now, instead of what they did do is raising the taxes on people and shooing businesses out of the state.
You got some from pensions. Anywhere else that you would have cut to deal with that?
Well, they could have cut
$5
the Medicaid down sooner instead of waiting to now.
Which we did.
Right, but they could have done it sooner.
You agreed with those cuts.
Correct.
That happened this last
year.
year.
We could cut a lot more.
Okay.
And there's other fraud that they could go after.
We could cut a lot more what? Name one line item in the Medicaid budget that could have been cut, Vince.
Well, we could go after they said they cut out the people who aren't supposed to be on Medicaid. Right?
Waste, fraud, and abuse.
Waste, fraud, and abuse. Now, why can't we just shift that back down now to other programs like welfare?
Okay.
And try to cut out the waste, fraud, and abuse out of there. And try to streamline, cut out the Illinois State Board of Education, let it go down to the regional levels.
Okay. You would cut out the entire spending by the Illinois State Board of Education?
Cut out the state and leave it down to the regional levels. Also cut down the DCEO and look at that grant by grant and see what's not being effective, and go through that and cut that as our $500 million
Anywhere
right
else?
There. That's about all I have for you.
All right,
now.
So while we're on education, Vince Romano, you favor school voucher, school choice?
Very much so. I think
You favor expansion in charter schools?
charter, private, and homeschooling.
Would you lift the state cap on charter schools?
Yes, I would. Now, if we look at our universities, what the people need to understand here is we have some of the best universities in the world, and that's because of competition. And competition among our own universities and competition among the world. Our K through 12s, though, suffer. We're ranked down in the 20s on our K through 12 education versus the world. Once we open up school choice and let the money follow the child, that's going to create better schools, that's going to create better teaching locations for teachers to go to, and the parents and the children will have a place to where they go, where they think their child will be best educated.
You would like to see school vouchers for the Chicago public schools?
Everywhere. I think competition is the key.
You'd like to see them in Morton Grove and in Lincolnwood and in Skokie and in Rogers Park?
Correct.
Lou Lang, what do you say?
I'm totally opposed to that point
School
of view.
vouchers?
I'm opposed to
What about
vouchers.
charter schools?
I'm
Are you
opposed to charter schools
Really?
until
You're opposed to
they
charter schools?
until they are required to hire certified teachers. So
Well, doesn't that defeat the whole purpose? The whole idea of charter schools, I think, is that you have more flexibility, more freedom. If you're going to hamstring charter schools with all of the constraints that the traditional public schools have.
I didn't
What's
say
the point?
all the restraints.
It's like when Barack Obama
They
said,
certainly should
of
have
course you inhale,
trained
because that was the
teachers.
point, right?
If you take a person who sells computers and you're going to put them in there as a computer expert and they've had no training as to how to teach a child how to use a computer, then they aren't going to do it very well.
You ever heard
and on
of
the
KIP?
issue
Did you
of,
ever hear of KIP, knowledge is power? Those kids come out of college, they are bright and thoughtful. They get certified as they're teaching, okay? They take training as they're teaching. They do tremendously well. Are you in favor of the KIP program, Knowledge is Power? You know about that program?
I don't know everything about it, but let me say this. Most of the charter schools don't work as well as they should. Some do. There are some very good results.
Really?
Let's go back to the
Take a look
issue.
at, have you ever seen this book, School Choice, Herb Wahlberg?
I'll read it.
I'll give it to you.
Let's go
I'll give
back
it to you,
to,
Vince. You ever
let's
seen this
go
book?
back to the issue of
There are
vouchers.
findings, Lou, there are hundreds of findings there that show charter schools do work.
Charter schools in Illinois,
Across the country.
Charter schools in Illinois have not worked as well as they were advertised to work. You can pull out a few that do, but there are a
Paul
few.
Vallis says they work.
Well, I don't agree with
He's
Paul.
a Democrat in good standing, isn't he?
That's fine, but I don't agree with Paul Vallis. We
Okay.
need certified teachers teaching students.
Vince, what do you say?
I think it's the solution we need. We need competition to have these better schools and give better
But do you
education to our
say,
children.
do the studies show, Lou's made a point.
Well,
He's
not only-
asserted in Illinois,
not only do
in
they do
Chicago,
better-
he says charter schools do worse than traditional public
I do
schools.
not
I didn't
agree.
say that in every case.
No, on average, you said they do
I
worse.
said- no,
On
I didn't say
average.
that either.
On average, they
What
do
I
better.
said was
on average,
is-
do they do better, Lou, worse, or the same? On average, give me that point.
On
in
average-
Chicago and Illinois, on average.
Yeah, well, it depends where you go. In some areas of the state, may be better.
On average. No, on average means
I
you
don't
go
think.
over.
a simple question, on
I
average.
think.
You're saying on average they do better.
Yes, and
I don't
even the
think we
private-
have an
and even
answer
private
to
schools do.
because schools are about teaching children, and the individual child that comes out of the individual school is our test, not some arbitrary test that somebody says this school is better than this school.
We're going to continue to speak as the credits roll, but I so much want to thank State Representative Lou Lang for coming.
Pleasure.
Here. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Vince.
I want to thank his Republican challenger, Vince Romano. You folks will have a choice. There you are. We'll have a choice on November 6th between Lou Lang, a Democrat. He's running for re-election. This is year number 26, right?
It would be my 14th term if I'm reelected.
You're the deputy majority leader in the State House, and you were practicing lawyer, right?
I am, sir.
Okay, you split your time that way. Vince Romano, you want to be a state rep. You currently are involved in the real estate and finance industry, right? Residential mortgages and so forth. Right?
Finance, energy money as a financial advisor.
You got your degree from the you got your undergraduate degree from?
Columbia College.
Columbia College. You spent some time at UIC, University of Illinois Chicago campus, right?
Yeah, I was a rugby coach over there for a while.
Lou Lang, many years ago, you got your undergraduate degree where?
University of Illinois Champaign, law degree at DePaul.
Okay. So you folks have a choice. You got to. This is great. I mean, if you're watching out there, you can't say you shouldn't vote because you don't have a choice. You've seen the clash of views between State Representative Lou Lang, Democrat, Vince Romano, Republican. You know, it wasn't like they said about, way back, they said, you know, I can't remember who they were talking about. They said they wanted a choice, not an echo, right? Well, you got a choice here, folks. You don't have an echo. Thank you so much for coming. Again, Lou, a lot of incumbents won't do this. You get a lot of credit, Lou, because they won't appear with their challenger, okay? I can't emphasize that enough. They won't come on public affairs. Lou, you've come on many times. We're not supporting anyone in this race, but we do support the notion that everybody should do what Vince and Lou did here. They come here, they face each other. So as we close the show, Vince Romano, got a tough question for Lou Lang.
Well, I mean, we were at the Tribune editorial board, and you know, conflict of interest. Lou says he's of counsel to some people. I released my
Quick, we only got about a minute.
I released
Get the
my
question
tax
out.
returns at www.romano.com. Lou said that he was going to release his. We're still waiting for that, and also.